My name is Andrew Geers,
And I'm Alisa Geers.
and we are medical missionaries with Christian Health Service Corps serving on the north coast of Honduras. I work in the therapia department, which is a post-op wound care, physical therapy, and now we're starting prosthetics.
And I work in clinic, which sees adults and kids of all ages.
We have been here for 2 years now.
So let's go, and you'll get to see a little sneak peek of our life.
In front of the hospital that our patients come each and every day.
This is our waiting room. Every morning it's packed full of folks, and they get to sit here and wait until they get called for their appointment in the clinic rooms. So let's go see a clinic room.
Yeah, I go up right now.
Here is my clinic room after a day of clinic. It's a little disorganized, but this is where I do all of my work every day. And
So now we will go across the hall to
Andrew's workplace.
my world here. So this is therapia, where I do a little bit of post-surgical cases as well as rehab and wound care. So we kind of have all our supplies in one central location, and it tends to be a pretty busy place, but enjoy it a lot.
Last year they saw over 20,000 appointments at the hospital and completed over 1,000 surgical cases. So you were all a part of that. Thanks for helping us fill the hospital to the brim and letting us be here.
So whoever's watching, we're here with Alisa and Andrew Geers. They serve with us here at Loma de Luz Hospital in Honduras. And I appreciate you taking time out to do this. I wanted to just ask you a couple questions about what is life like here, and maybe let's start with this. What advice would you give a new missionary family coming to the field, or a new missionary couple coming to the field?
I would say for anyone new coming that it's important to kind of have a foundation in Christ first, that the problems that you have in the States don't get washed away when you come to on the mission field or wherever you're at. So just having good support at home, like our home church supports us well, and we have friends that we can always reach out to if we need to. And then we've developed a community here that's been great as well, but it's always good to kind of have that extra support and God first, for sure.
Yeah, and I think just like a really good sense of humility and humor with yourself. Yeah, I think the Lord taught me so much the first year that we were overseas, just about being humble, and that we weren't going to come and fix things or make a huge splash, but that the Lord uses us in such small ways. The culture that we're coming in isn't that we need to be fixing or changing anything, that we can come alongside them and work with them. And just a sense of humor to laugh at yourself when you make mistakes. And
There are plenty of times for mistakes that happen,
Yes.
and even language barriers that you say something and it is completely not what you meant, and you just have to know that.
Can you give us an example of that? Can you think of one?
Yeah, one where you're meant to say.
In language school, one of our duties, and we had class in the afternoons, and in the mornings we would volunteer at a nursing home just to practice Spanish. And one of our duties in the nursing home was to gather some of the residents and get them ready for breakfast. And I would take two sweet little old blind men to the table and get them settled and tuck like a napkin in their shirt and get their bearings situated. And for like a week or so, I would get them set, and I said, "Okay, señor, voy a dar usted una cerveza." and I was tucking a napkin in their shirt, and I meant to say, voy a dar usted una servilleta, and what I had told them was I was giving them a beer. And these poor little blind men were probably just like, where's this beer that she keeps telling me? I'm so disappointed. And anyway, I found out later, and we had a good laugh.
That's
and
good.
Yeah, hopefully they weren't too disappointed.
But now we know.
Now I know the difference between cerveza and servilleta.
Hey, well, tell us what you guys do professionally here as well. Besides the ministry aspect of what do you do professionally?
Yep. So for me, I'm a physician assistant, and before I went to PA school, I was an athletic trainer, and so God in His providence has a place here that's known as Therapia, and it's kind of a catch-all between rehab, post-surgical patients, wound care, and so that's where I'm placed here. That's kind of my outlet professionally. So yeah.
And I'm a nurse practitioner and work mostly in clinic and do some emergency care when we're on call.
That's awesome. I know that's a big challenge for mid-level providers. Finding places on the field that are a good fit is always a challenge for mid-levels. So we're glad that you guys are down here. So what have been maybe your greatest challenges here on the mission field, or at Loma particularly, and just in general?
Sure. I think one has, like we talked about, language is still a challenge. So it's something that we had prayed that we'd have a miraculous epiphany of waking up and just having Spanish spew forth from our mouth without even thinking about it. But it still daily is a challenge, and will be as long as we're here. But we just keep plugging away and know that every day God is continuing to be faithful in the little things, and not necessarily I'm speaking perfect Spanish all the time, but that we're able to talk with our patients and pray with our patients and just the basic things. Yeah. So that has definitely a challenge, but also a way to see God move in that.
Mm-hmm. I would cry to the Lord and pray that I would wake up speaking Spanish, and I would say, Lord, you made a donkey speak English or Arabic or whatever it was. You can help me speak Spanish. But that's always a challenge. Language learning is not like a gift of ours, especially mine, so we fought for every word in conjugation, but we're doing it mostly. And other challenges, I think, one benefit but also a challenge is community. Like missionary community is always you're working with the same people that you're worshiping the Lord with, that you're having your kids with play after work, and you do everything together, which is a wonderful sense of community, but also can be really hard if you're stuck with the same 10 or 50 people all the time. So I think that's a great benefit, but also a great challenge too. And I think it just really helps also develop your interpersonal skills. If there's a problem, you have to learn to resolve it and not let it get festering quickly. And so it's hard, but it's also good. You have to just really be humble and try and overcome any differences.
For sure. And I think one of the things with that is on the mission field, usually the places that people go are isolated. And so it can feel isolated, not just because you're in a new culture, but you're also in the missionary culture. And then if there's a rift or if there's problems within that culture, all of a sudden you're kind of feel isolated from everything. And so that has been a challenge, especially where we're at, being an hour and a half away from the nearest grocery store, whereas in the States you're used to 5 minutes away is a Starbucks or whatever, that you can kind of get away from the routine of life and kind of reset. So that is one challenge, is finding a way within that to reset, whether it's taking a walk or whether that's, for me, finding it in music, being able to play guitar occasionally. So I feel like that is a challenge.
Yeah, and I think for everybody, I think being away from family and friends is the number one hard thing. Sure. You miss birthdays and graduations and Christmases or Thanksgivings, and that's heart-wrenching a lot of times. But I think yeah, the Lord sees it and works with it and gives us little gifts to help us through those times too.
And those times that we are together, we just appreciate that much more when we are with family and know that it is a precious thing, for sure. So,
That's cool. So, what have been your biggest blessings here, do you think?
I would say just the patience or the community that is here, specifically the Honduran community, just to be able to one, work alongside Hondurans and just see their work ethic and just their heart for their fellow countrymen, and then to see the patients here that literally have nothing and yet have a spirit of joy and of peace, and that they have a faith beyond what I ever thought was even possible to have when you're faced with these difficult circumstances with your health and with your overall living situation, and yet saying God is faithful and God will provide and we trust in that. And you just go, wow, I have not been in a place like that before. So it's just encouraging to see and know that God moves in all places and all people, and for those who have a heart for Him.
Yeah, I mean, we come to help alleviate suffering and bless others, but we are blessed so many times in the hospital just by the generosity of the patients that are there. They can't barely buy anything, but they want to get you a soda or a Coke, or it's just something to express your gratitude, and you just are so humbled by that and
That's awesome.
appreciate that. And yeah, that they wake up before dawn to try and make their appointment, and that they are working so hard just to make ends meet, and that they still have that joy and are smiling even in the midst of really hard circumstances. It's really amazing.
Now you recently started a prosthetics program here.
A long time coming. I would say I more came alongside what had already been put in place. But yes, we just this past week had the first two prosthetics made and fitted for two patients, and we had a building in place for about 10 years now, and just have not had the resources and the personnel to try to kind of get it moving forward, and just recently have been able to do that.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Now you've taken care of two patients thus far. Can you give us maybe one of those stories?
Sure. So one patient in particular, his name's Jamal, and he's a 13-year-old boy who had an accident in a village about 3 hours away from where we are, where he fell off his bike and had a fracture of his lower leg. That he was treated at another hospital in the country and had a lot of complications, developed infections, and it got to the point where they had to remove the majority of his bone in his lower leg. And so his parents were desperate and felt like nothing was getting better, and basically they were just watching their child slowly lose his leg. And so they had heard about us and brought him here, and when we first saw him, it was just, his spirit was one of such fear and just discouragement. Some of the first things he said to me when I first saw him in our emergency room was, please put me to sleep, because he had dealt with so much pain that he didn't want us to do anything before he was under anesthesia to take off the dressings. And then he said, don't take my leg, please don't take my leg. And so obviously very traumatic for everyone involved. But knowing medically that the bone is gone, the tissue's infected, that basically the best option for him is to take his leg. But thankfully that wasn't the end of the story. Thankfully, knowing that we had this prosthetics lab in the pipeline, and in some respects it gave me even more motivation to say, hey, we're going to do this for this patient and for the patients to come in the future. So we were able to speak encouragement into him and just say, hey, we're going to have to take your leg, but at the same time, we have hope that we are going to be able to give you a new leg, and you will be able to walk and even run one day. And it's been a long process. That was about a year ago now that he first had the amputation, and this past Friday, first time that he received his prosthetic, and just the joy on his face to go from deep despair to just the greatest joy. And an example of that too yesterday was he was fitted with his prosthesis and walking around, and then we asked him, is there anything else you want to do with it? And he said, I want to climb stairs. And he went, we're just going to go. And he climbed the stairs of the hospital and conquered it. And I said, you're a conqueror of mountains now. And he just sat there and smiled with such a joy. And so just to see that parallel between, the joy of that and the joy that God gives us, that we are in our brokenness and without hope and in that situation. And then Jesus came and gave us a new life, like not just a new leg, but a whole new spirit. So it's cool to see those parallels in the small things and the big things that God does. So
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting him at some point and kind of learning more about that story. But thank you guys for taking time out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you want to share with anybody watching about your time here at Loma or Loma de Luz and the hospital?
Say that if you're considering missions and you feel the Lord's calling to do it, then pursue it. We, like the time is now, life is never going to get any easier. Your, commitments are only going to grow. Take the plunge, do it, see what the Lord does, and with lots of wisdom and prayer, I think you could move mountains.
I remember when I first started talking to you guys that it was, we're only going for a year, just a year, no longer. And now, how long have you been here?
it's going on 2.5.
Yeah.
Almost 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A year seemed less scary, but the Lord is doing awesome things here, and we're excited to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out to share a little bit.
Thank you.
okay, thanks.